Hey there, it's Liz Gracia, and welcome to another episode of your weekly dose of higher consciousness on my YouTube channel at trumpeteroftruth.tv.com and on the podcast at trumpeteroftruthradio.com. This is the place to discover what I call the foundational basics and essential understandings for raising your level of consciousness and building a better life. And it's been a while since I've done a recording, and I'm happy to be back after a 6-month hiatus. I took a road trip from Colorado back to the East Coast. Took lots of fun stops all along the way. Decided I'd take a break from doing the podcast and videocast, but now I'm really revived and inspired to get back to it. So today's topic is, what does it mean to be spiritually awakened? And with all that's going on in the world, craziness, and today's date when I'm recording this is February 18th, 2021. So if you spend a lot of time watching the news, I'd recommend stop doing that, because there's a lot of lunacy going on there. And we'll discuss that in another upcoming video to put everything into context, what's going on in the world, and particularly in the United States. Oh, worldwide anyway. It's like the whole world is affected by this. So today we're going to talk about what it means to be spiritually awakened. And there's this word going out around, in the news, and the politicians talking about being woke. I'm like, what the hell is woke? So let me look at being woke, look that up in Wikipedia, and I'll tell you exactly what it means. I mean, you kind of have an idea that you might understand what it means. Okay, so woke, it's a term that originated in the United States, referring to a perceived awareness of issues that concern social justice and racial justice. It derives from the African-American vernacular English expression, stay woke, whose grammatical aspect refers to a continuing awareness of these issues. Okay, so woke is being politicized, which the minute you politicize something, it goes down into the sinkhole of self-serving, people thinking they're all that and they know what's going on. So we're going to talk about what it really means to be spiritually awakened. But before we do, I just want to put a little plug in, because Eckhart Tolle, who many of you may know if you're watching this, and many of our audience is already aligned with the message that Eckhart Tolle speaks. And I want to put a plug in for him today, because he's starting, I think it's a 6-month School of Awakening. It's called the School of Awakening. And it's an advanced program to intensify presence and live your highest purpose. And that starts March 27th of 2021. And I'm going to give you links below so you can go check out the details of it all. But before I do, I just want to read a couple of paragraphs from a letter from Eckhart inviting you into this, this program if it's right for you. And if you're interested in raising your level of consciousness, Eckhart Tolle is all about that. So this is a little snippet from his letter that you'll find at the link, but he says, I know many of you are experiencing inner transformation. At the same time that the world around us appears to be changing quite rapidly. Perhaps amidst these seemingly chaotic and uncertain times, you've begun to realize the possibility within yourself of living from a different state of consciousness, a state we call the awakened state. Now stick with me, because we're going to talk about the awakened state shortly. Transformation often presents challenges, and I can assure you that this statement is true. I'm Liz is saying this, okay? I've experienced quantum spiritual awakening, and it does present challenges, which we'll talk about in today's topic. A difficulty many people come up against is how to integrate and stabilize their arising new consciousness in daily life. This, if you go into a quantum spiritual awakening or any type of dramatic awakening like I've experienced, your foundation gets so rocked, and we're going to discuss why that is, that you have these swings in consciousness, which is known as the pendulum swing. Like, you know, your intention is to be loving, but then, oh, you get swung back into fear and doubt and unworthiness, whatever it may be. And the dance between the world of form and formless, right? This is like the dance of the Shiva is kind of sort of like it, right? You're being presented with what you want in form, but what's still going on in the formless needs to be addressed. So we'll talk about that. So Eckhart's saying, many of you may be asking, how do I live in this world and stay rooted in deeper states of being and presence? So I don't want to go into this class because it's for a limited audience, a limited time, only through March 27th, 2021, can you enroll for it. So I'll come back to a little bit more about the school and some other opportunities to listen to Eckhart. He has a free video series that you can listen to right now, which is 3 essential teachings you probably didn't learn in school. So there'll be links below the video and links below the podcast, but remember, they're only available for a limited time. So I'll get back to that at the end of this video, because we want to get to today's topic, because you may be coming in on this after March 27th of 2021. So let's talk about what it means to be awakened. And if you're drawn to this podcast or video cast and you care about awakening your own consciousness or being what you would hope to be a spiritually awakened person, you're already spiritually awake at some level. And if you've been following the podcast or the video cast, then you know I'm a follower of Dr. David R. Hawkins' Map of Consciousness, which was originally published in his book, Power versus Force. So here's the book again, Power versus Force, which can be a difficult read because it's highly evolved writing from a genius level scientist, spiritually evolved human being, an enlightened human being. Enlightenment is huge. We haven't gotten to the enlightenment level yet in the podcast, but we're getting there. Yeah, but after his passing, I'm pretty sure his wife and Hay House Publishing put out the Map of Consciousness Explained, a proven energy scale to actualize your ultimate potential. It's kind of like dumbed down a little bit for the everyday person. Not to say you're dumb, but this level is super high level understanding, which you may not ever get. This is a little more graspable to understand. So there's some options for you to get started. So if you know my background and my history and some of the stories I like to tell, in 2003, I had what I can only describe as a quantum spiritual awakening. And that's the only way I could describe it. I've never had one before, but when I was in it, I'm like, holy crap, this is a quantum spiritual awakening. And that threw me into this pendulum that Eckhart, you awaken into higher levels of consciousness. You come into the awareness, like if you come into the awareness of inner joy, the presence of divinity, God, life, oneness, super high frequency experiences. They can be scary to the mind and to that part of you that feels unworthy of the presence of God. Okay? When you're experiencing this, you feel unworthy, or you can, which I felt like, why should I be the only one granted the amazing grace of this experience? And it's not to like, I certainly didn't feel special. I felt like it was unwarranted. Right. But anyway, when you get into these high states, any thought that isn't of the highest state throws you back to what is not true. Whatever thought you're having, whatever fear you're having at this level, the power to manifest something to be fearful about shows up. So it's this. And when you're operating from super high like this, it was happening for me like within hours. So I'd be up here for an hour or two, and then boom, I'd be confronted with the opposite of it, which is horrific, because the power up here to create something horrific is tremendous and fast. So it happens quickly. It's highly unlikely to happen to most people. I think it's fair to say what I've been through is rare, but meaningful in the spiritual domain. So if you understand, I teach Dr. Hawkins' Map of Consciousness because it's a huge gift to the world, and it puts everything into context so you can stop guessing what's the truth. Like, what's true? You can stop guessing. You can, in fact, one of his books, Truth versus Falsehood, is an encyclopedia that puts many things throughout history into context. So you can start to align with what feels true, And the map of consciousness is vast. It's 0 to 1,000, and it's a logarithmic scale. And anything over 200 on the map of consciousness holds truth, integrity, power, happiness, lovingness, success in life, wisdom, everything above 200. Doesn't matter how high. You don't need to go up to Christ level and Buddha level at 1,000 to experience the truth and power of and glory of God, whatever you want to call it, the truth of life. I mean, if God is like, you don't want to hear that word. I used to not want to hear that word. It's still a little hard for me to say, but Hawkins has no problem talking about Dr. Hawkins because he's in the presence of divinity 24/7 when he was alive, for the most part. So the map is a logarithmic scale of 0 to 1,000. Anything below 200 is negatively oriented, downward pulling, destructive by nature. It's just what it is. It's not a judgment. It just is what it is. And it's present in life to provide contrast on many levels. Like when you realize you're an eternal being, and I've been giving the revelation twice, maybe 3 times, what eternity feels like. And it's overwhelming to be shown it and to realize there's no rush. There's no rush to enlightenment. And it's kind of funny that once people I read about, people that have these enlightened moments and that's all they seek, Shangri-La. But I've had many extended periods in Shangri-La, so to speak. And I don't need to rush there anymore because I don't have any foundation under me to do that. And we'll talk about what that what foundation is. This is what the map is all about. If you look at the map, I'm going to show you a nice big picture of it. And I recommend you just buy a map or get a book that has the map in it. And you can go to veritaspub.com and they'll send you a laminated map, which you can leave right on your desk, which I like to have it available to me so I can see, all right, where am I at on this? Or if I'm watching somebody speak, I'm like, what's the feeling that's coming from them? What's the language that's coming from them? And I can look at the map and I can say, do I want to trust them or not? So here's the map. And we got the sun shining, blaring in here. Here we go. So here's the map. And it's not some woo-woo thing at all. Dr. Hawkins spent decades of his life creating the map so that humanity could map out, like, where do I want to be in my life? What does it mean if I stay in anger and frustration? Is that going to get me anywhere? Not according to the map. There's no gas in the tank when you're angry, resentful, bitter, blaming, shaming, complaining. Okay, there's no gas in the tank. There's no energy there. It's an impersonal energy field you're giving your attention to. And it's not a judgment of you for being there. You don't know any better. You're just feeling it. So you got to go with it. But you got to let go of it in order to come up on the map. So the map is logarithmic, meaning 200 on the map of consciousness is 10 to the 200th power. 500 is 10 to the 500th power. And the higher you go up the map, the greater the leap between each point. It gets quantum in nature. It's huge. The mind can't even grasp the power. So to put it into context, Christ, Buddha, anyone living at extremely high levels of enlightenment at 1,000, they were 1,000, Dr. Hawkins as well has been calibrated as 1,000. You can't write these books that are all in the 800s, 900s, 700s without being aligned with the truth in higher consciousness. So Dr. Hawkins is a modern day Christ, Buddha, whatever you want to call it. So the power for someone like Dr. Hawkins and Jesus Christ and the Buddha, they have the power to offset the negativity of a planet. That's how much power they have. That's freaking huge. And as you enter higher states of awakening, like I've been in the, I've definitely been in the 500s, 600s, been in the presence of 850. They're super high. I don't recommend that unless you have a serious, spiritual foundation under you. So we're going to try to so one thing that Dr. Hawkins said, and this was my experience, is that when you hit these higher states, you'll be confronted with the negativity of mass consciousness, not just your own. And that's why I don't recommend it. When you get up to 750 and above, you have these encounters with the dark side of the world, which is horrific. And you got to just kind of be present with it. And I don't recommend it. It's horrific. So there's this is just kind of, I'm putting into context the vastness of consciousness and what it means for you to be spiritually awake. So when you understand that 85% of the world operates under 200, 50% of the United States operates under 200, then don't feel bad if you are operating below 200 on a topic. We all are. And what you need to understand is that as an individual, you're all over the map of consciousness on different topics, right? You could be super high in your regard for others, like you're loving and kind and you care for others. And you could be super low on what you think of yourself. You may not consciously think things that negatively about yourself, but if you're running programs of like not good enough, unworthy, whatever, perfectionism, pride, anger, whatever, we all run the lower realms. You just don't want to hang out there. Just understand that you're a mix of it all. And if you're watching this, you're likely not in the 500s. It's a rare individual that is. In fact, only 0.4% of the world calibrates at 540 or above, ever reaches that level, 540. So 600 to 1,000 is the land of enlightenment, and that's even rarer. And when Dr. Hawkins was alive, there was like a dozen people above 600, so it's rare. Mother Teresa, as an example, was 710. She was one rare bird. Good old bird, that Mother Teresa. She is known that 700s is the land of the mystic, which we're not going to talk about that today. The point for today is to help you understand, how do you be spiritually awakened? Now, I've got myself caught up in wanting to be spiritually awakened on every topic in my life, which isn't a bad thing, but it's like, maybe that ain't going to happen in this lifetime because I got a whole eternity to unravel all of it. And what I would advise you is that you've got to decide on one topic today that you'd really like to step into higher consciousness on. That's like stepping into, to be spiritually awakened could mean something as simple as you've got this topic, this issue in your life that you're always, you're struggling with. It's a pattern that keeps repeating itself. You've got to step into courage on it. So that's the first step in any spiritual awakening, really. And the power level of courage is 200. So You could also have other higher levels of consciousness running in you already, which is like willingness, which is 310 on the map. Neutral is 250 on the map. And acceptance is 350 on the map. I'm going to stick in those ranges. When you get into the 400s, that's the land of reason and the mind, which you probably have some reason and rationality running within you as well. So take the topic, whatever it is. And it may be so buried you don't even know it's running. But if you got a pattern in consciousness that you keep repeating, like you keep attracting the same partner that doesn't like seem to serve you, it's not that they don't serve you, it's that you're not waking up to your own worthiness. I mean, it's safe to say 90%, 95% of all asleepness, meaning being under the veil of awareness or the illusion that you're a victim on any front, is being of lower consciousness on the topic. So what you need to do to be spiritually awakened, like start with a topic. You don't have to be a Buddha or a Christ at 1,000. Enlightenment is a radical pursuit. Dr. Hawkins will tell you that. I can attest to the fact that enlightenment is a radical pursuit, and I never consciously pursued it. It came to me. The awareness of enlightened states came to me on numerous occasions, 24 at last count, for extended periods of time, 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. These things would come to me over the course of 10 or 15 years until I finally found a stable balance, right? When I stepped into balance, which is, I think, 300 on the map of consciousness, I'm like, thank God, right? You do not want to do this. Trust me. I mean, you can do this, and you may likely do that as you decide and set your intent out there to life. You say, okay, I see that I continue to give my power away to somebody else and feel unworthy on any topic, right? That could be an issue. It's like, oh my God, I keep giving my power to somebody else and my energy sinks because I'm giving it away because I feel unworthy of it to an extent. So if you look at the map, you're going to decide, all right, where do I want to be on this topic? And I recommend simple, like neutral is a great starting point at 250. But you got to have courage to even look at the topic, right? Do you have the courage to look at something, a weakness within you that you're ignoring? And that's the first step to being spiritually awakened on any topic, never mind spiritually awakened in general. Spiritually awakened in general that's a big pursuit. Enlightenment is a radical pursuit. And it does definitely have pitfalls because you're not understanding, for me, I didn't know, I'm like, holy crap, I knew it was a quantum spiritual awakening, but I didn't understand why I was confronted with horrendous darkness, right? To the point I'm like, you got like shoot me now, like end it, be done with it. I thought I was going to die on many occasions because it felt murderous in nature, the energy, horrific stuff. So back to simply being spiritually awakened. Let go of perfectionism or the belief that you have to be spiritually awakened on every topic in your life. You don't, okay? Just in general, you need to realize that when you look at the map of consciousness, and maybe you've seen some of my quizzes where I put things into context, there are ways of being that are of a higher nature. And Dr. Hawkins, I just saw a video recently where he spoke of decide on one thing to be. And one thing to be could be kind. And he always says that. Choose to be kind, which kindness is like 220 on the map of consciousness. That's attainable, to be kind. Choose one and then stick to it. Always be kind, period, no exception. and everything else will start to line up. So this is what I like to use as a kind of a visual. All of us, in the absence of understanding the map of consciousness, okay? This is the map of consciousness. Boom. It's a sequoia tree. It's thousands of years old. It's firmly rooted in itself, in truth, in understanding to the earth, okay? It knows who it is. It's rock solid. Truth cannot be moved, right? Doesn't matter what you think the truth is. God, life, consciousness knows what the truth is. And kindness is a high-level truth and spiritual foundation at 220 on the map of consciousness. All right, you don't have to be 1,000 on the map to be spiritually awakened. So if you go to Dr. Hawkins' book of slides, he has a whole section on spiritual foundations called the virtues right here. Okay, all of these are attainable. I'll just read a few of them. Okay, to be spiritually awakened, all you have to do is be balanced at 305. When I found balance at 305, I'm like, thank God I feel balanced. Because I was doing this for a whole decade. Huge swings. They got less until they finally came to here. It took a long freaking time though to get there. We're here for eternity, so I understand that part of the divine dichotomy, but I was like, friggin', hey, I'm done with this, please. My life has not been the same ever since this quantum spiritual awakening. It hasn't been the most fulfilling, I'll have to say, except for, I've been granted the grace of divinity. And the presence of God's will is huge. All right. So let me just read a couple of spiritual foundations called the virtues, ways of being that can awaken you, all right? To be helpful. Helpful and kind is 220. Totally doable. Open, 240, to be open. Content. Be content with where you are, 255. Happy, that's a big jump, 395. Glad's a little easier to grasp at 335. So to be spiritually awakened, you can be spiritually awakened on thousands of topics, all right? But maybe you have some that are really holding you back. And typically those have to do with self-worth, self-awareness, and coming into courage that you're all of us are worthy beyond measure, for sure. That calibrates it true at a very high level. We're worthy beyond measure. And you got to step into courage on it. And none of us are victims. Like, even though people perceive themselves as a victim, if you were to muscle test like this, if you muscle tested, this person is a victim, the arm would go weak, right? It would go, wah, no, you're not. And then you'd ask, well, but they are. Well, they perceive themselves as a victim would probably hold strong. Yeah, they perceive themselves as a victim because they're holding on to some energy field. There's some repressed or suppressed emotion in their energy field that's getting in the way of the truth. So the reason that everything below 200 holds no truth, because God is present, period, in all of us. Divinity, the source of all that is, the creator, is within all of us. And God's like, that's not true that you're a victim. God holds firm, no, I'm right here within you, and I will not affirm that that's the truth, because you're not. You're created in we're all created in God's image, which is superpower, okay? It would hold no truth thinking you're a victim. But I understand why you feel like you're a victim. I was a victim for a long time, unraveling the density within me, unraveling the non-truth within me. Took time for me to unravel it all. So be easy on yourself and understand. Well, I got to get back to my sequoia tree metaphor, okay? So in the absence of understanding the map of consciousness, which I didn't know about, I had some awareness, but when I found Dr. Hawkins, I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna help me. It came to me. I don't remember how it came to me anymore, but because he speaks of higher truths, which I have been in the presence of, I now understood, okay, that's what that was, but how did I end up with this? So in the absence of understanding the map of consciousness, most of us are this, right? Scattered energies, confusion, like misunderstandings, misperceptions, because you got lows and highs and lows mixing, and you're doing the swing, and you're like, oh, you get high and then you swing low, and it's like crappy energy, right? It's not the sequoia. You're not standing firm and balanced. And when you do enter the balanced state, you're not doing this anymore. There's no more of that, none. So, spiritually awakened person stops doing this, right? And comes into willingness to take a look at what's going on, the inner landscape. What's going on here? And the courage to admit, all right, I've been doing this for a while. I've been bitter and resentful for a long time, and I like to project that out on somebody else. Okay, you got to let that go. And if you're new to this, my letting go episode, how to let go, is episode 10. The very first, it's the foundational basics. In fact, episodes 1 through 10, I highly recommend you need that as a foundational basic to understand this podcast and video cast as we move forward, right? Otherwise, you're not going to follow what I'm saying. So, decide to be spiritually awakened on some topic. Like maybe it has to do with work. Like, are you bored and miserable and hate your job? That has nothing to do with the job. It has to do with the energy fields of suppressed and repressed crap going on within you that you weren't aware affects you. Everything that's buried and suppressed creates the thoughts. And then the thoughts create the manifestation. So, it's, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The repressed and suppressed energies create the thoughts that create the form. So, to be spiritually awakened, don't make the leap. Even Dr. Hawkins would say, give up on trying to be unconditionally loving. That's at 540 on the map. Let go of that. Because if you set your bar so high and you're not even close, you're going to get into this swing I'm talking about and what Eckhart Tolle is talking about. Right? He says right here, transformation presents challenges, and that is how to integrate and stabilize their arising new consciousness. And it's the dance between the form and the formless. So if you aspire to be unconditionally loving, be aware that that which is not let's put it, how can I put this? It's a giant leap to decide you're going to be unconditionally loving unless you're already loving and you're there. And a lot of people think they're up in the 500s and 600s. I'm like, I don't think so. Most people that are interested in this topic and come into alignment with this topic, Dr. Hawkins has found is typically working in the 300s, moving up into the 400s, right? To be a pure 500 or 540 is rare. So understand where you are on the map, or do your best. You don't have to know your own calibration. You can look at every little issue in your life and like, okay, and don't disparage yourself if you're down here because you didn't know any better. Like you're down here on yourself, like always berating yourself or disparaging yourself is low vibe. But I promise you, when you understand the mechanism of letting go, which again is in episode 10, and I'm going to be doing some more letting go episodes because it's helpful to hear it again. And it's helpful for me to speak it again as I feel myself shift into higher levels. I feel blocks of significant levels coming in, like neutral is a great level to go. If you start disparaging yourself on something, go neutral on it. Just say, no, listen, go neutral, let it go. That's a great energy field. It's super powerful to be willing to say, no, that's not true. Whatever you're thinking, it's old stuff. It has nothing to do with the present. It has to do with the past and stuff from the past, not anything else. So decide to be spiritually awakened on some topic, right? At work, right? You can decide to be awake at work and be kind to everyone there and non-judgmental. Let go of wanting to be right and judging everybody. I'm telling you, neutral is a great power field at 250. Practice neutrality. That's a spiritually awakened way of being, for sure. And practice being courageous on any front. That at 200 is a spiritually awakened way of being. So you can see there's a vast field of consciousness that's spiritually awakened. Courage is awakening. Neutrality is next at 250. Willingness, that's an energy field of 310. That's a spiritually awakened field of willingness to change. And life is going to start presenting you with that, right? Acceptance of yourself as the creator of your own experience, that's 350. And that's a great kind of spiritual gateway to consider. Do you feel like you are the creator of your own experience? You take responsibility for your own life. What's the answer to that? Be honest. And when I first heard that, I was like, I didn't want to accept that. I'm like, are you kidding me? There's no way in hell I would have created that mess I created for myself. So some part of me was not willing to accept that at 350. But that's just an indicator of where you're at. I understand that that's the truth, so I'm willing to accept it. And that's how I want to spiritually awaken. I want to wake up to being responsible for my own life and stop blaming and shaming and being a victim of anything, including God. I felt like a victim of God with some of these horrific things I've been through. So you don't have to be it all. Again, pick one thing to be spiritually awakened about. And if you acknowledge that you're spiritually awakened about something, right? Look at some place in your life. Like when I first had this awakening, I was traumatized and in deep despair. And what I chose to become spiritually awakened about was, I said, what can I love right now? And all I could love at the time was kids, babies, and pets, and animals, and nature. Something that wasn't human. For whatever reason, I didn't want to look at humanity. I couldn't love humanity. I could love children. And, kids are pure, man. They're coming in pure until the world pollutes them, which they're not victims either. We're all powerful, eternal spirits choosing the contrast and the beauty of life and how we decide to use that life, right? We're going to love on it, love everything about it, or are we going to be victims to it all? Your choice. All right, so that's today's topic on how to be spiritually awakened. Again, one topic at a time, right? That's what I do. One topic at a time, take it easy. And a great affirmation for this would be something like, I'm willing to let go of bitterness and resentment on this particular topic, whatever it is. It's a great way to start, as opposed to saying, I am willing, when in fact you're not. Or I am happy, you're not happy about this topic. So don't try to force it, but say, I'm willing to let go of the negativity I hold about this topic. That's an easier unraveling of the energy. That's a good affirmation. Or I'm willing to go neutral on this topic about my own unworthiness. I'm willing to go neutral when I speak disparagingly about myself. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to stop. And I'm going to say, oh, I'm willing to let that go and be neutral. It's a different power, different energy. You can feel it. Ooh, just shift. So that's kind of, it's fun to work with affirmations because they are a powerful energy field. That I'm pretty sure they come in at 200 of courage. That's when affirmations really start to get hold. But You kind of have to do a reverse one by saying, I'm willing to let go of anger, as an example. You know, you're dealing with the anger. You're being honest that there's anger there, not hiding it by saying, oh, I'm happy. No, I'm willing to let go of anger on this topic and let it go. And try to, you know, when it comes up, you're like, okay, I'm willing to sit with this anger and let it go. Don't bury it again. Don't deny its presence. Be with it. And that's what that whole episode 10 about how to let go is about. You got to understand. I mean, there's so much, you know, oh, let go, let it go. It's like, you can say it again and again, but how do you do it, right? You got to know how to do it. There's a process of how to let go, which is highly freaking effective. I assure you that. I'm constantly getting these shifts like, whoa, look at that, look at that. You can actually feel the energy shift, like, ooh, 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 all these shifts going on. I'm going to end it right there. And again, if you're interested in being spiritually awakened, I recommend Eckhart Tolle, and he is of higher consciousness. And I belong to a consciousness community ever since Dr. Hawkins left. You know, he passed in 2012. So there's a community of students of Dr. Hawkins that continue on the intention to continue to calibrate consciousness so that we can be sure of who we're trusting in the world, who we want to follow in the world. There's so many false gurus. So if you go to consciousnesscalibrations.com, it's a small subscription just to, you know, support what he does, because it's a lot of work to calibrate stuff and to post and to keep, you know, and you can put in a request for a calibration if it serves a bigger audience, not just you. Okay, you gotta. So anyway, he does a whole list of spiritual teachers, a long list of teachers. Many of them are well known. And I'm not going to call any of them out right now, but if you go to that website and you subscribe, you'll see some renowned teachers you don't want to be listening to, really. They're not, what they say holds no truth. And it's not that they're lying. They don't know any better. They think they know, but what they're teaching holds no truth. Eckhart Tolle, on the other hand, his how he supports the world and his students and his contribution to the world is a very high consciousness and pretty rare. So he's a teacher worth listening to. If you're already involved and interested in higher consciousness, you're not going to be led astray by Eckhart Tolle. So again, he's got a School of Awakening coming up, and what did I say, March through August, so late March, April, May, June, July, August, like 5 or 6 month program. It's for more advanced spiritual seekers that are interested in raising their level of consciousness. So I will share the link about that below, and it's only good till March 27th, 2021. And he also has a free teaching that this free teaching should be available indefinitely. And it's called What Matters Most, 3 Essential Teachings You Probably Didn't Learn in School. So it's a free 3-part practice series to deepen presence and awareness. So again, I'll leave the links for both of those below. And that second one is free. Now, just so you know, I'm an affiliate partner with Sounds True, who's putting on these courses from Eckhart Tolle. And I do get paid a commission if it turns into a sale. And this is a way I found that feels good to me to support what I do, is to find teachers, what I call consciously curate content, to shift you. Like my intention is to help shift you, but I also want to support all levels of consciousness from teachers of all levels of consciousness that can move you from where you're at, right? Eckhart's not for everybody, right? This is a people that care about their own consciousness at a higher level, right? And don't disparage yourself for not being attracted to it yet. That could simply be a sign that you need some other foundational blocks under you before you go there, right? Because you want to, best to avoid the swing. best to not necessarily take quantum leaps. So I also want to, while I have you, because I've been away for 6 months, I want to let you know that I am the founder of the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com. And I've kind of revamped the content of that website to be consciously curated content, meaning I do my best to find things and find teachers and find videos that are of higher consciousness and have been calibrated as so. And typically that website, Consciousness Calibrations, and Dr. Hawkins' Truth versus Falsehood book has tons of starting points for me. So I'll kind of like find a book that I know is of higher consciousness, and then I'll find a video from the author or some type of supporting program that helps to take you to that next level with a course or whatever it may be. So I've got a new content calendar, I think, and every Monday, I think you'll like this one. I think a lot of people will like this, and I totally am loving this. Every Monday, I do your weekly, your high vibe song of the week. And I share a song in video format. I'll find the song being sung by someone, maybe the original artist, maybe somebody else, that really moves me at every level of consciousness. So there's music in the 200s, the 300s, the 400s, etc., so that you can start getting a feel for what each level of music feels like, sounds like, and it's interesting. And I like all levels. I even like the low stuff. I'm a big fan of some Eminem songs, which is pretty funny, and AC/DC. They're super low, by the way, but there's just some of them that get me moving. What can I tell you? So that's on Monday. Tuesdays is your free personal tool for transformation. An example of that would be Eckhart's 3 free-part teaching. So I find the tool, I find, and you can sign up for the whatever it is that the free tool is, that will then lead you to a course or somewhere else with that particular teacher. But my intention is to make sure I'm doing my best to find teachers that are of higher consciousness and teach it, and their materials are of higher consciousness. I don't calibrate all of them, but I do my best based on the availability of stuff. I can't calibrate by myself. My ego head gets in the way. So I kind of turn to consciousnesscalibrations.com and that community, as well as all of Hawkins' books. This one in particular, this is like the Truth versus Falsehood. It's hard to see that. Whoops, the sunlight is, there we go. Truth versus Falsehood. Again, all these links are below the video and the podcast. To kind of do my best to find stuff of higher consciousness. And you really want to go check out that spiritual teachers list. 80% of that list holds no truth, and they're all pretty well-known, famous people, which is not judgment. They don't know any better. They likely don't know that they're operating from that level. Otherwise, they'd change. Okay, so we got Monday is the song of the week. Tuesdays, free tool for transformation. Wednesday is the online course of the week. Thursday is a life lessons, inspirational life lessons. I love that. In fact, I did one recently that I really enjoyed from Michael Singer, who's the author of The Untethered Soul. And his life lessons, oh shoot, what was the topic? I think it has to do with knowing what you want. How do you know what you want? I think that was the topic. Anyway, really good one. And then under like the life lessons one, I write a blog post to put it all into context based on consciousness, the map of consciousness. So I'm kind of reinforcing the alignment so that you can become that sequoia of truth in your life and not do this anymore. Like, boom, here's the truth. You can listen to some guru that doesn't tell the truth and think they're telling the truth. They, by the way, would be considered the wolf in sheep's clothing unwittingly. Or you can just go like with the truth. Here's the truth. Here's someone operating from higher consciousness. They have integrity. They care about your consciousness and not earning a buck necessarily. So that's Thursday. Fridays are weekly events. We have weekly online events. We partner with the Shift Network on that. They have so many different world-renowned teachers or people that are really excellent at what they do. we have like 3 or 4 events that come through the Shift Network every week that you'll find on the website there as well. Saturdays, I have a new pet project that I love. It's called My Editor's Top Picks from Etsy. I'm really an artist at heart, so I like to curate different categories of things like if you want to create a yoga studio she shed, I've done that. Or if you want to make your mindful man cave, I curate stuff off of Etsy to put it together. You can see what a mindful man cave would look like. And then like, you know, Valentine's Day gifts or nature-inspired jewelry or yoga jewelry, all these kinds of great topics I share. I go through Etsy. I know how, I used to be a retailer, so I'm have a great eye for design and aesthetics. And I seek out some really excellent craftspeople and beautiful things that you can find on Etsy. And then Sunday, finally, I do an inspirational advanced spiritual teaching from Dr. Hawkins. So I pick out one of his little clips that you can find all over YouTube. He's so fun to watch and he's funny. But I'll pick one, share it, and then I'll write insights from a different perspective, my perspective, which is not, you know, I've been up where Dr. Hawkins has been on numerous occasions, but I'm not there. He's there. And I just kind of take it down and to put a little different perspective on it, you know, a different level that hopefully the intention is to make it more intelligible and understanding so that you get it, right? You make the shift because of what he says. If that doesn't do it, and then you read what I say, then maybe, oh, I get it now. That's the intention. So love for you to check out that. And I've introduced a new app, because apps are just as, you know, so many people are using apps. It's just a cleaner, easier way for you to stay in touch with us as opposed to social media. I'm kind of moving away from social media and just sticking with the website, podcast, YouTube, and our mobile app, where you'll get everything that I just spoke about will be updated every day. It will be right there on your app. So if you decide, oh, Monday's song day, I want to hear the song of the week, then you'll have the mobile app right there to look at it. Or any one of those topics, the inspirational life lesson of the week, or Dr. Hawkins, or our tools for transformation, whatever. All right. This is a long-winded catch up with you guys because it's been 6 months since I've been here. And I always want to end my podcast or video cast with this, which I know I forget sometimes, but love is the truth at 500 on the map of consciousness. The mind at 400 cannot even hold a candle to that. I mean, the mind is useful and powerful, but the spiritual domain of 500 and above, you're not in Kansas anymore. Okay, we'll see you next week, and I'll start integrating new content on a weekly basis. I've figured out a nice doable plan for myself so that I can keep up with your weekly dose of higher consciousness. Thanks for being here. See you next week.